So good afternoon, South San Francisco. This is Rich Lee, your Assistant City Manager and podcast host and producer with you. I'm joined by special guests today, multiple guests today, which is a first for us. And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, we'll start here from my left.
Hi, I'm Tonya, I go by Tonya. I'm the Education and Staffing Coordinator and a Satellite Supervisor for the satellite locations. I've been with NAMI for a little over 8 months.
Awesome, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Rocio Cornejo Panameno, and I am currently the Education and Volunteer Director at NAMI SMC, and I have been part of NAMI staff for almost 8 years now, so I'm very happy to be here.
And I'm Olivia Heffernan, and I have been with NAMI for about 2.5 years now, and my role is Events, Communications, and Youth Services Manager, and I'm happy to be here today.
Awesome. So this podcast episode is really meant to highlight the services that NAMI is providing, not just to South San Francisco, but to all of North County and San Mateo County. Second, it's to provide an opportunity so that members of our community can learn about your organization and the services that it provides. So one thing I wanted to get a better understanding of is how NAMI started and what was the impetus behind this organization.
Yeah, of course. I'd be happy to answer that. So, the story of NAMI is really a story that is born out of, I think, just desperation and so much heart from these family members back in the late 70s who were being subjected, not just, the family members, but their loved ones to a horrendous healthcare system that really wasn't kind or empathetic to their experiences and the challenges that come with living with a mental diagnosis and also caring for a loved one undergoing these experiences. So in 1979, Eve Oliphant and NAMI San Mateo, we are very fortunate to be the birthplace of NAMI, actually. So we take that with great pride. And Eve actually put out a newspaper ad saying, anyone that's out there that is looking for support, that has something to say about the treatment of mental health right now in our system. Anybody going through this, write back to us. And she, along with Tony and Fran Hoffman, started actually meeting some of these families across the county, and they would gather at like a kitchen table and just talk about their experiences. And they started this movement, which back then this was the 70s. They were called Parents of Adult Schizophrenics, and so this group really was started from a grassroots movement, and pretty soon they had letters coming in from all over the country. Family members experiencing the desperation and the frustration and the anger from the system that was not there to really support their families. And Eve actually shares a story where they were told, by doctors and by clinicians that the reason why their family member was ill was because of them. You are the source of their illness, which of course is not true. But I think it just gives you a glimpse of how broken the system was, and how it did not offer any sort of solace or any sort of empathy to these individuals. And from there, it really grew to even more meetings, and pretty soon they had a packed conference at the College of San Mateo auditorium, and people from all over the country came to that. And then there were these groups of parents meeting in Ohio, in Washington, all over the country. And pretty soon that evolved into becoming NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I know that was kind of a long-winded origin story, but I just think it's so important to know the basis of the work. What this was born out of was this desire for change, this desire to integrate family members and peers as well into the system of care. So now we have around a little more than 650 affiliates all over the country, and we have 49 NAMI state offices. So we are nationwide, and we are NAMI San Mateo in the Bay Area, but we are neighbors with NAMI Santa Clara, NAMI San Francisco, NAMI Contra Costa. So the fact that this has grown so exponentially over the years, I think, is a testament to the value of NAMI and how it's needed so much in this community.
So one of the programs that I've been participating in this year is the Leadership Council of San Mateo County through the CORE program. And as a part of their capstone project, a small group of each member of the program is assigned to a nonprofit and a government agency to help them in some regard. The nonprofit that my group is working with, they're trying to replicate what they have locally. They want this to be all across the United States. So I'm curious, what started, and I hear you're very proud of NAMI starting right here in San Mateo County. How did that grow, to be nationwide? I hear there was definite interest here locally, but how did you replicate that success, outside of San Mateo County?
Yeah, I think that there was a point where, NAMI then had to go to a legislative level, because locally was just not enough. So we had to go to the California state office, and then we had to go, they had offices in Sacramento. Fran and Tony Hoffman were there, as well as Terry Walker. This really grew. There's some TV interviews you can find from the 80s, with some of the NAMI founding members, and they bring in their adult loved ones, and they talk about their stories, and I think that had a really great impact. And I think that there was also a point where the healthcare system came to these parents and were like, we think you have something important, something worth working towards, and let's work together. So I think it was an integration of different dynamics coming together, and the fact that when one person speaks up and speaks out, I think it gives the courage for, the next person to do the same thing. I think we have to lead by example. And, this was back, 50 years ago, but 40, 50 years ago, but, it was so heavily stigmatized back then. It still is very stigmatized today. Unfortunately, I think we're working towards lowering the stigma in our community and in our society. But I feel like it's something that is just relatable. We always say, we'll get more into facts, but we always say, mental illness does not discriminate. It doesn't care about your origin story, it doesn't care about your background, it doesn't care about your socioeconomic status, it doesn't care about anything. Mental health is something that is so prevalent and affects so many people. And so I think that it was a story that folks could relate to, and they would probably afraid of also speaking to. But I think that when you have these incredible champions and pioneers, kind of publicly vocalizing, my loved one, has a mental health diagnosis, and I love them, and I'm here to support them, and there's hope, and there's treatment out there. I think it gives a voice to other people to want to do the same thing.
So my background, for most of my career was in finance. So it was very much about numbers telling the story. Mm-hmm. Another nonprofit that I've been involved in is Second Harvest of Silicon Valley. And I think of their numbers as before the pandemic and after the pandemic and ongoing. Before the pandemic, it was around 200,000 families in San Mateo County and Santa Clara County that needed support and had food insecurity. Fast forward to the pandemic, and that number skyrocketed to more than double, right? A little bit less than 500,000 families in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties that need food support, and they have food insecurity. Can you kind of quantify perhaps pre-pandemic and post-pandemic mental health needs through what you see through NAMI?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So one of the most known statistic is that in the U.S., approximately 1 in 5 adults experience mental health conditions every year. And, we talk about how it affects so many people, and the stat is 5 in 5 people are affected by mental health conditions every year. Because, there's the person, and then there's their family who's affected, and then there's their community, and then, there's the whole world that's affected when each individual person experiences those struggles. And because of the pandemic, during it, more than 50% of Americans reported that they were negatively impacted by their mental health. And in February 2021, a shocking 46% of adults in California reported symptoms of depression and anxiety. So the numbers definitely increased a lot, and the conversations around mental health changed a lot too. There were some studies that showed that people after the pandemic felt more open to sharing about their mental health struggles because it was talked about a little bit more. But, there were more people who were open to sharing, but there were also more people who were experiencing it. And, the numbers definitely were greatly impacted by the pandemic. And a few other stats that I'd just like to share is the youth population is also really important when we think about mental health, because 50% of all lifetime mental health conditions starts by the age of 14, and 75% start by the age 24. And it is reported that about 17% of youth ages 6 to 17 years old experience a mental health condition every year. So, of those lifetime mental health conditions, by reducing those and focusing on youth, and of course everyone, we can really target those beginning stages. And another really shocking statistic is that suicide is the second leading cause of death for youth ages 10 to 14. So as we can see, mental health is very present in every community, and the pandemic has definitely made that, it's made it a more regular occurrence for people. The isolation has really caused people to experience more of those symptoms than ever before.
So you've mentioned how you try to focus on youth, but do you differentiate NAMI's programs between youth and adults and seniors, and having peers that they can perhaps hear from or relate to?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we divide our services. We have youth services and then adult services. And the adult services are divided by individuals who experience the mental health condition themselves and their family members. And yeah, was this a good time to get more into our services?
That'd be great.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So my focus is youth services, and some of our two main youth services is we have a mental health presentation called Ending the Silence. And this is a great presentation because it goes into schools and it teaches students about what mental health is. Some kids at home, they don't have any of these conversations. So in school, what we do is we share, it's broken up into two parts. And the first part is led by an adult, and they share what is mental health. What does it mean to have mental health? And what are some symptoms of mental health conditions and warning signs that you can look for? And when you notice those, what are some things that you can do to get help? And what are some ways that you can help others? And the second part of it is led by a young adult, and they share their personal lived experience with a mental health condition. And this is when students can really see, like someone else has been through this and they struggled a lot and they made it through, and I'm not alone, like someone else has experienced this too. And we actually recently, we did a presentation to Sarah High School. It's an all-boys high school in San Mateo. And I was just talking to their wellness counselor yesterday. And this presentation was back in October. And he was telling me that after our Ending the Silence presentation, about a dozen students came into his office that day and said, I think I'm struggling. And the presentation helped me realize that. And he was saying that the presentation actually helped a lot of people who had those really high-risk behaviors, and he could see it was a direct result of us starting the conversation. So that was really, really impactful for me to hear. And for Ending the Silence, we also have a presentation for school staff and one for parents, and those help them learn how to identify the mental health signs in teenagers so that they can also help with the intervention. And then our other main youth service it's called a Blues Teen Group, and this is a 6-week support group, and it's focused on youth in grades 6 to 12, and it focuses on how learning how to understand why your thoughts are there and how you can reframe your negative thoughts can really positively influence your feelings and behaviors. And we really take them through these like emotional and life skills and how they can implement it in their daily life. And we also have some other ways for youth to get involved with advocacy. We have a youth advisory council, and this is a way for them to come in and be like, this is what I want to see change in the mental health world, and now they're given a platform to do so. And I was also talking about the pandemic, loneliness and isolation is a big part of, when you're experiencing depression, anxiety, you feel anxious in social situations, and then you feel isolated, and then isolation makes you feel more depression and anxiety. So trying to break that cycle, we also have a 20s meetup, and this is a time for a bunch of people in their 20s to just come together and have fun. And the goal is to like break that isolation pattern, and they can see like, oh, I can go be social in this inclusive space, and by doing so I do actually feel better when I'm having fun with people. So how can I do more of that? And it's really to create the space for them to do so. But yeah, that's a big summary of some of my youth services that we manage.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. And I know some of your colleagues cover other areas of NAMI, so do you want to take a moment?
Yes. So the services that I cover are the services for the adults 18 plus and the senior connections 55 plus. And those programs are peer led by individuals with mental health conditions. And so it's called a support group. So it's a support group that takes place twice a week on various days, and then once a month on Saturdays, where the peers come together via Zoom and they talk about lived experiences, a structured presentation that we go through where we talk about the agenda, the group guidelines, and the principles of support. And then at the end of the group, we also have an opening story where we talk about, they share who they are, and then we have like a group discussion. And once the group discussions takes place, we have the group discussion, and then everyone they'll pick a principle of support that they'll take along with them before they come to the next meeting. And then at the end, we all say the 12th one talks about we don't give up hope, because the purpose of these programs is to allow people to come together to talk about their lived experience, right? Not just their diagnosis or whatever it is, but just talk about what they're going through, how their day was, and that just kind of helps them come together and be in community, because some of the people that are coming, whether they're 18 and older, they may have loneliness or whatever the case may be. So that gives them a sense of community. And then with the 55 plus, which is 55 and older adults who are suffering with mental health conditions, it's also peer led by individuals that are 55 plus with lived experience, and they also help guide each other in those moments of like their loneliness, or they want to be able to go out and do more. But this just gives them a sense of community. And we also have a provider class which helps the mental health provider, the family member, and the peer who's also going through their recovery. And we just finished a class that took place just this past month, and I was a provider teacher. So it's a 5-week class, and we just talk about the various stages of support, the various stages of the emotions of what happens in those moments of crisis with your family member, with the provider, how the provider feels. So we're getting all three perspectives. So you're getting the person that's going through the recovery, you're getting the family member who is dealing with the family member who's going through crisis, and then you're getting the perspective from the provider, the frustration that each particular group is going through. So that's what NAMI is about. It's about coming together, understanding that we all are not alone, right? And it also gives us an opportunity to understand we're not alone, and we have hope for the future. And although we have these lived diagnoses, we live with them, we're not our diagnosis.
So all three of you have kind of touched on what is principal to NAMI is people sharing their lived experience, and that takes courage. Someone that's gone through trauma or a lived experience that they perhaps they don't realize it when they share, but they're helping someone to also share their story. It's cathartic. Right. I'm recalling an event I went to. It was at the Teglia Senior Center. I think it was the kickoff for announcing services in North County. And there were some members of I think they were from your board, who had participated in NAMI and received support from NAMI, and they were sharing their story. I mean, that's quite the success story, where you have someone that needs support. They rely on NAMI to help them, and then they give back to the organization because they believe in what it's doing. Right. So, I admittedly, my exposure to NAMI before that event and before this podcast was more about the big event, right? Where that's your signature. That's arguably your signature event that most people hear about, which is NAMI Walks. But I think there's an opportunity to better understand what NAMI is and perhaps what it isn't. Mm-hmm. So can you help, for those the uninitiated, better understand that?
Yeah, of course. I can speak to that. So I'll start with, first what we aren't. So we aren't, we don't provide clinical service. We don't provide direct therapeutic services, for example. So we, aren't there to provide therapy or, medication or anything like that. Those components are very important, but we believe that the work we do at NAMI is we really provide that wraparound service, right? So we provide more of that. It can feel holistic. It can be holistic, but it's also incredibly evidence-based. And NAMI actually works with researchers, and they use the best available scientific and clinical models and practices out there to really bring out the best programs for our community. And these programs have been around, for many decades. And NAMI frequently works with researchers to analyze the effectiveness of these programs. And what the studies have found is, these programs work. We do have research to back that up. And anytime that there is a research or a study that proves the effectiveness, it's designated as an EPA or evidence-based practice. So at NAMI, we have 6 of our programs that are evidence-based. We have family to family, we have ETS, which Liv talked about, we have basics, and I can go more into that. But I do want to say that, this is evidence-based, and that we are I believe in what we provide, and I think it works because I've seen it time after time. I can see the efficacy, and I can see the great impact it has. And so what we provide, kind of touching back to what Liv was saying, was peer-led services. So these services are led by individuals who have a direct connection to mental health or the mental health experience, whether they are a peer or someone with lived experience living with a mental health diagnosis or mental health challenges that wants to give back to their community, or whether they are a family member or a caregiver who supports a loved one and is in a space where they want to give back. So we are able to provide that sort of wraparound service where the person or the individuals leading your support group or leading your class know what it's like. They understand what it's like to live with these challenges, or they know what it's like to support someone, right? So they're very familiar with the roller coaster ride that living in wellness can be like and can feel like. And I just want to say that, you talked about, these examples of folks come to NAMI and they see that it works for them, so they want to give back. And I think that the 3 of us are examples of that as well. We each have our own connection to mental health, which I think makes us so passionate to keep doing this work. I know I have my own experience. I have my own diagnosis living with mental illness. And I came to NAMI, sharing my story. and I always thought, how can I get to a place where I can accept that I'm living with this diagnosis and that it's not all of me, but it is a part of me. And the way I did that was through sharing my story and seeing how it impacted others. And I started doing that. One of the very few places was NAMI. And that's why it's impacted me tremendously. It's given me, I think, this opportunity to be reflective and to give back. And it's very rewarding working here and just being a part of an organization that puts people first, and is so well regarded in the community. Did that answer your question? I kind of feel like I went on a tangent there for a little bit.
But I appreciate you, making that connection to folks that mental health was a part of their lived experience, their life story, and giving back to an organization like NAMI because you see the importance and it's a part of your life's mission, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of our program leaders were participants in the programs at some point, and we have folks coming back a year later. 5 years later, I just had someone teach a family-to-family course, and they took that course like 8 years ago, and they finally okay, I'm at a place in my life with myself, with my loved one, where I want to give back. I'm retired. I'm ready to teach this course to the community now. So it's just incredible to see, kind of that full circle come back, and then we can help more people.
So if you were to take a straw poll of all of the elected officials, the staff from government agencies, local government in North County, in San Mateo County, you would probably get the same sentiment, which is there's, if you kind of captured all of the nonprofit organizations in San Mateo County, there's a heavy concentration in South County, right? I think it's roughly 3-to-1 ratio. So can you kind of tell me the story of how we came to provide NAMI's services here in North County, regionally here in South San Francisco? I'm just curious how we were able to bring that to pass.
Yeah, I can start us off, Tonya, and then you can speak more about some of the direct services. But we've always been so heavily concentrated in NAMI San Mateo County and Central San Mateo County, we oftentimes a lot of our participants and folks interested in our services don't live in San Mateo. They live in other areas. They live in EPA, they live in Redwood City, they live in South San Francisco, they live in Daly City. So, geographically, we are always striving to make our services more accessible. And that's always been one of our main goals, is to make sure that the services we're provided don't just stay central to one location. And we're actually going out into the community and we're bridging the gaps to accessibility. So it was kind of, a no-brainer. We wanted to, obviously stay in San Mateo as well, but also branch out to South County and then to North County. And through a series of conversations, we ended up creating this partnership with the Roberta Cerri Teglia Center. And we had an incredible open house. I do remember you being there. And there was such an excitement there. And there were some of our longtime NAMI members saying, "I'm so glad you're finally here, because I can walk 2 blocks and I can come to one of your programs." We also know that South City has a large concentration of the AAPI community, the Asian American Island Pacific community. The Latinx community is also very, very strong here, very present. So we want to make sure that we're also bringing services for, the underserved communities, the communities that maybe are a little bit more reluctant to attend a mental health event, or maybe there's a lot of stigma around. There's a lot of cultural stigma attached to some of these conversations and some of these topics that can still be seen as taboo. So we really want to make sure that we're again bridging the gap, making ourselves more accessible and relatable, and also connecting to the community in ways that make sense, and that's kind of how it came about to be, that we have these incredible services. So we're so thankful, to you and Jeanette, to Mayor Flores, just to give us the opportunity, to give us this platform to reach more of your community members. That's something we really, really strongly want to do because the programs are there, the services are there. We just want to see more people come to them. So we're very grateful and thankful that you gave us this opportunity.
So let's say I'm a member of the community, the regional community, and I don't even know. I know I need support, but I don't know where to get started. Like, how do I reach out to NAMI?
Yeah, there are different ways, and I know Liv, you can probably speak more too, because Liv does all of our technology and website stuff. But there's many ways. You can call us, you can email us, you can go to our website. But you probably want to expand on that.
Yeah. So one important thing to note is that we have something called a helpline, and this is a number that people can call and they can say, hey, I'm experiencing some depression and I don't know what to do. We can direct you towards resources, whether it's our resources or other local resources, to get you in touch with the right services. A parent can call and say, hey, I'm my teenager and they're not going to school. Like, what should I do? And we can direct them towards those resources. So that's one great place to start. And it's also something that you can call and say, hey, I want to get involved. What are some ways I can get involved? That's a good place to start. You can also email our main email. It's NAMI, N-A-M-I, at namisanmateo.org. Another great way to stay involved is every Tuesday I send out a weekly newsletter called Tuesday Newsday, and it talks about all the latest happenings at NAMI. It talks about if our next peer-to-peer class is starting. It talks about any events that are coming up, and that's a great way to just stay involved. And when you go onto our website, on the homepage, it's about halfway down, you'll see a little area where you can add your contact information, and then you can subscribe onto that list. You can also just email or call us directly and let us know that you want to be added, and we can add you that way. Also, if you're interested in getting involved, on our website, we have a tab that's called Get Involved and Become a Volunteer. And you can go there and there's a Google form that you can fill out that captures some information about what kind of volunteer opportunities you're interested in. We have the walk, if you're interested in volunteering for that. There's a lot of different ways, and that will get sent through to people and people will get in touch with you.
And what was the helpline number?
It's 650-638-0800.
Got it. And you mentioned folks that might be interested in helping or volunteering. Likely they have gone through mental health issues themselves. Does NAMI provide some training for them in order to become perhaps an instructor?
Yeah. All of our programs have different trainings, and we make sure that our facilitators are set up for success. So we're with them every single step of the way. We line up the trainings for them, they get involved, and then each of us stays in touch with them the entire time of how are things going, what are ways we can support you, and we're there the entire time helping them.
So tell me, give me a pitch for the NAMI Walks event. I know it's your signature event. When does it happen, and when should we start hearing about it?
This is my favorite topic. So the walk is happening this year, October 4th. It's a Saturday, and it's at Seal Point Park in San Mateo. It's the same location we've done it the past couple years, and the walk is such an important event for our organization and for our community. It's important for many ways. The goal of the walk is to bring our community together and to let people know that they're not alone, and to raise awareness about mental illness, and also to raise funds because all of our programs are free. So the way I see the walk is that, so people can get involved in a number of ways. They can choose to volunteer. They can join our NAMI Walks committee, and that committee has already started meeting, and we meet basically until the walk, and they're our committee that has made the walk possible. It's this group of dedicated, really committed people who are just doing it because they're passionate about mental health, and they make the walk possible. So if someone's interested in getting more involved in a community that feels supportive and passionate, that's a great way to get involved. On October 4th, there's also opportunities to volunteer then, and then to join as a participant. So there's 3 different ways to get involved. You can join, the first one that we always encourage people to do is to make a team. So you can make a team, And then you can start recruiting your friends and your family and your coworkers to come join your team. And you can say, hey, this is a cause that matters to me. I'd love to have you join. They can join as a team member. Also, there's another way to sign up as an individual participant. That's completely welcomed as well. And something that I always vouch for when people are trying to decide what to sign up for, I always vouch for the team, because mental health is hard to talk about. It's hard to start that conversation and say, hey, like, my family's struggling with this, or I'm struggling with this. Where NAMI Walks is a physical event. You can create a team and you can send it out to your community, and that's kind of almost a passive way of starting the conversation, because you're just saying, this is an event I'm going to and I want you to come with me. You're not, it might feel a little less scary than just coming out of the blue and talking about it. And I know a lot of people who create teams, they often report to me of, I created this team and I sent it to these people, and all of a sudden I learned that this family is also struggling, and their son has struggled, and their husband has struggled, or their wife. Like, there's just always more. There's so much benefit in finding this way to start the conversation. And my family has also been involved in NAMI Walks. This is going to be our 10th year walking. And it all started because we were really impacted by mental health, and my mom decided to start a team. And now our entire community, 10 years later, still joins our team and comes to walk with us every single year. And it's a time to reflect on the ways that we have been affected and bring people together. And another great thing I will say about the walk is that when you're there on walk day, you look around and you see up to 500, 600, 700 people, and everyone there has been affected by mental health. And just by that single fact, and just by simply looking around, you can realize that you're not alone. And that is one of the things that I think is most important, most impactful about it. And one last thing I will say about the walk before I wrap up is a couple other ways to get involved is we are also always looking for sponsorships. So any companies or individuals or anything like that who are interested in having your name on our t-shirt and our banner, and you can reach out to us, and we're always looking for more sponsors. Also at the walk, we have a community resource fair with other local nonprofits, and that's another way people can come and check out what other resources are in the area.
So I wanted to end perhaps with a couple of minutes for each of you. And I'm curious, again, I'm recalling back to the kickoff event and hearing the, I would call them a testimonial, about NAMI, about the organization, about mental health itself. And I'm curious, what attracted you to not only come to NAMI, but to give to it, be a part of the organization, and what are perhaps some lived experience that you've had through NAMI that there is no, it's the reward is itself. So perhaps I'll start with Tonya.
I came to know about NAMI because we started a We Heal Better Together African ancestry support group, recovery support group. And I was one of the co-facilitators, and I'm still one of the co-facilitators. And then as time went on, I got diagnosed with depression and anxiety. So as I'm sharing my story within the group, I have lived experience as well. But as I'm sharing my story and going through all of the programs that NAMI has, I've gone through the peer-to-peer program, which has helped me with my diagnosis and understanding that although I have this diagnosis, that I can still live a functional life. I still can set goals for myself so I can thrive and have the life that I want. And so that's why coming to NAMI too. And then when this position came about, I applied for it because I want to give back to the community, not only for myself, but for my family as well. So I get emotional because not only that I have lived experience, but my family does too. And NAMI really helps the individual with their lived experience because of the program. And
And it does give hope because it gives all of the things that you want, because you want to feel normal. You don't want to have, no one wants to have a mental health condition or a family member that has that experience. So with NAMI, for me, it's a place where I could be myself. I could share my story and share the story about how it's affected myself, how it's affected my family members, and all of that. So NAMI is a great organization to be a part of, and to be a part of not only as a facilitator, but as a peer with lived experience. So yes, thank you.
And thank you for sharing your courage with us, because it empowers other folks who are going through the same thing. They need someone to take the lead. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
And a couple minutes for yourself.
Yeah, I before I speak about, kind of put the spotlight on myself, I did just want to quickly give an overview of some of our programs. Besides Connection and in the Silence and Provider, we also offer Family to Family, which is an 8 or 9 week education course for family members and caregivers who want to learn more about their loved one's diagnosis, symptoms, treatment options, but it also is a space, a communal space where they can come and feel safe to share their story, share what's on their mind, and know that they're not alone and that there are other folks out there that support them, that care about them. So that's Family to Family. And peer-to-peer, Tonya mentioned also an 8 week education course where peers come and learn more about these different types of diagnoses. And for our NAMI programs, we never ask for a diagnosis. We never say, show us a doctor's note or anything like that. If you are out there and you are struggling, and you've been struggling with certain feelings, certain emotions, certain thoughts, and you want a space that's safe, you want a space that is going to be non-judgmental, where you can come and be vulnerable, and you'll be accepted and seen and validated, then come to our support groups, come to everything we do. We also have various family support groups that are online and across the county. Again, family members come, they meet monthly, and it's a space for them to share. It can be very cathartic, and it's just a great place. And we also are doing... We've also collaborated with in CIT training. CIT stands for Crisis Intervention Trainings, with police officers, law enforcement, paramedics, EMT, first responders, and we have family members and peers go in and share their stories about their interactions with law enforcement. And the hope is that these conversations are put out into the community for our first responders and law enforcement to gain a deeper understanding of the experience, and to see the human being first before the diagnosis or before symptoms. And then we also do classes and collaborations with the Latinx community. In the next few months, we're going to be having a workshop series called Raising Hope, or Compartiendo Esperanza, for our immigrant and Latinx community to come and talk about wellness, talk about what mental health is. Our community right now is very stressed out, and really we want to provide that safe space to come and just decompress. For me, like I said, I have my own diagnosis. I have family members that have diagnosis as well. For me, the points in my role where I'm like, I'm in the right place. Like this just feels so rewarding. There are just these moments where I'm reminded of the power of the work that is being done. There was a peer-to-peer class that started 2 weeks ago, and I came to the class to welcome everybody. And as I was leaving the class, I said, thank you for coming. We appreciate you being here. You're worthy, and I just said, you're worthy to the class. And one of the participants started crying, and she got very emotional. And I said, oh, are you okay? And she goes, I'm going to leave the class today knowing that I'm worthy, because I haven't been told that in a long time. And that really struck me. And I drove home and I was like, there are these words. I mean, the power of words, first of all, can be so impactful. And just to tell someone that they're worthy, that they're loved, that they're seen, that they're capable, that they're strong, they're not just words. A person out there might just need to hear that. And that could be the motivation to go on another day. We've also had instances in classes where we're doing graduations. We just did a graduation for a Familia class, an EPA in September. And they're so proud when they get their certificate, so completion of the class. I mean, they dress up, they're just, it's like a party to them because they're so proud of themselves. And we just applaud them for taking the time out of their day to come to a class. And one of the participants told me how she was using her vacation and sick hours at work to come to this class. She's like, I wanted to be here. I knew I had to be here to support my loved one. So again, we try our best to make these classes accessible, whether they're in person or online. We work with the community. We want to work more with SSF. So again, this is our kind of call to everyone to come together, come support NAMI, come to our classes. If you have any questions, any doubts, if you just need to hear this, you're worthy. And I always said personally, if I share my story, and through sharing my story and through talking about mental health, if that gives one person hope or inspiration or just the desire to work on their wellness or get help or finally ask for help, then everything that I went through, everything that NAMI does is worth it if we can just reach one person out there. So thank you for this, for allowing us to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and for me, how people say turn pain into passion. And I went through a lot of my own mental health struggles. And, as I said, 10 years ago, I actually lost my brother to mental health struggles. And he was young. He was 15 years old. And for me, and then I proceeded to go on my own journey for many years after that. And, it was one of the ways of like, I've seen it, I've experienced firsthand, I've seen it firsthand, and I've seen my friends struggle and so many people around me. And it's like, if I can turn all that I have learned and all that I've seen and use that to help someone else, like that for me is passion, and that's worth it, and that's what I want to be doing in my life. And I focus a lot on youth services, and it's like, if I can help the youth learn about these things sooner so that they can get help sooner, or even just realize that they're not alone that much sooner, like I care so much about that. And that is something that my experiences have led me to have more insights on and more ability to show up there and be there and understand what they're going through so that I can help them in the best way possible. And NAMI, when my brother was going through struggles, my mom took the family to family class. She took the family support groups, our Parents of Youth and Young Adult group. And those helped her find a place where she can talk about what she's going through, because that's what the family support groups are for. You're trying to help your child so much, but you're also struggling by going through this. And our family programs allow parents, that's the space they can break down. That's the space they can be like, this is terrible and I'm losing my mind and this sucks and I wish I wasn't going through this. It's the time for them to talk about themselves. And I'm so grateful my mom and my dad had that space. And I'm so grateful for the family to family class, helping them learn he's not getting out of bed to go to school. It's like my reaction isn't to be mad at him for not going to school. It's not because he just wants to ditch school. It's because there's so many other things going on for him. And the family to family class helped them understand that so that they can better support him in those moments. And that is something else that has my mom was really the one that brought me to NAMI. And when I was looking for a new job, she was actually volunteering on the walk committee, and she's like, oh, they're hiring, you should join. And I was like, this feels like a full circle, like I'm definitely in. So it's been a really big pleasure to work here and be able to really turn that pain into passion.
Thank you. I thank all three of you for, one, joining me, and two, sharing your story. It's very powerful and impactful. So I'm thinking of especially North County we have a very diverse and very rich culture. At least for my community, I think it's about 31% of our households are monolingual. So if I only speak, Spanish, which is our number one language, am I able to get support through NAMI? Like what languages are supported?
Yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely. We have currently servicing and programs in English and Spanish primarily, but we do have volunteer helpline assistants that can also support individuals that call in and speak, Tagalog, Mandarin, Cantonese. So we're able to offer that support. And in Spanish specifically, we have Familia Familia, Bases y Fundamentos. We have the Sharing Hope / Compartiendo Esperanza series of workshops coming up in the next couple of weeks. So me personally, I'm an immigrant from Mexico, Mexico, and it's something that my family has learned to navigate. Even talking about mental health and what is mental health, and talking to my grandma who lives in Mexico, the terminology is quite different. So we do, we always strive to provide more services, in different languages. And I'm working with a couple of newly trained family-to-family program leaders to bring a Familia Familia in Tagalog here in your community. So we're always looking for ways to expand and to better serve, and again, to bridge the gap. I think that's something that is always on our mind, and we're working towards. So, yeah. So
again, thank you for joining. It's been a great having you here on the podcast. And one more time, if you could, for our community, if they need support from NAMI, what's a good email address, and what's the helpline that they can contact?
Yeah, so they can call our helpline at 650-638-0800, and they can ask for support, for resources, and they can also call 988. That is the national crisis number. So you can call that number, you can text that number in your language of origin. It's very important for the community to know about this number, because oftentimes, when someone is in a crisis, they don't know who to go to, or, so 988 is very important to remember. But in terms of NAMI, they can also go to our website and find more information there. That's namisanmateo.org. Or send an email to nami@namisanmateo.org. If you want to reach one of us specifically, you can email or call and ask for us, Rocio, Olivia, Tonya. So we're always here to support. You're not alone. You're worthy, and you are important to us.
Thank you so much, and really appreciate you having all here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.